Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way down in Florida. How you doing today, Christy?
I am well, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad. You just got back from some festival. What festival's going on down there at Epcot these days? The festival of the fall, the spring, the art.
The Festival of the Arts just ended, and in 2 little days, we get Flower and Garden Festival.
And that runs until
July or something. It's like the beginning of that is long. That is a very long time.
I feel like they should call it Flower Garden, and then kind of because it goes into the fall, so like the dying leaves too. So like it just goes through the whole cycle of the plant's life. No, that's Food and Wine.
Food and Wine starts in the summer, which is also entirely too hot for Food and Wine. Like they serve you soup. Who's eating soup in July in the streets of Epcot? And then that goes into the fall.
That nice what is it, the French cheese soup or something like that, they have that over in Canada. So
yeah, I can never have that.
Either can I. Okay, let's jump into it. It's always fun to have a first-time cruiser on, and I know that you wanted to get as many as we could this year, and we've got a fun guest today who went on his first Disney cruise, and I'd like to welcome to the show all the way down, I believe, in the SoCal area. Welcome to the show, Stephan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of yours, and it's kind of surreal to see you guys on the other side of this Zoom. I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
Well, thanks for reaching out. And I mean, holy cow, when I saw all the things that you've done already in your life, I mean, as a journalist, you're an author, you're senior editor right now at Bustle. Make sure I'm saying all these right. You've worked with Entertainment Weekly, you've worked at Netflix. Did I get any of those wrong yet?
Well, I'm currently at Netflix, and I was formerly at Bustle and Entertainment Weekly. But yes, I'm a bit older than I look. But yeah, actually on the cruise, some people were like, hey, are you sure you're supposed to be in the adult section? And I'm like, I clear the bar by a good more than a decade. So
hey, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, you do look like you could totally fit into the 1820 society.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That is a high compliment.
You're also a novelist. So, and we're going to talk about a little bit about that. You finished your 4th novel while you were on the cruise, but I know you've got one out right now, and I missed the other 3, but could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I have 2 novels out right now. They're both in the young adult category. The first 2 are actually a book about K-pop, but it's about a young girl who goes to Korea to enter the whole K-pop world. And it's kind of like the real life Hunger Games for her, because the way they do things there, they don't just find musicians who come up on their own. They kind of train them in this really harsh facility. And it's kind of all about her trying to become a K-pop star. And then there's a sequel. And then my next 2 books, I can't announce exactly what they're about yet, but they're in the works. And I sent off a draft of the 4th while I was on the ship, which was very exciting.
That is exciting. But now I want to know. Now I want to cut the on-air recording and find out what this is about. Maybe we can get out of it at the end.
Chris, the one thing that I've learned about Chrissy over is she hates secrets. So as soon as as soon as something's out there,
so much.
This is just a little nugget for our long-term listeners. You'd also said in your bio that you're a lifelong lover of girl groups, and I was thinking that you are the yin to Marcus Monroe's yang.
Yeah,
who's a comedian who's a lover of boy bands. So that's for a little nugget for a little hidden Mickey for our long-term listeners. You know Marcus and listen to Marcus's shows. So I love that. Well, you're a busy guy. How did you find Disney? When did you even have the time to go to Disney?
Well, it's interesting because I actually kind of had my Disney renaissance in my life very recently. I was a huge fan of Disney when I was a very, very young child. If you think that your very young children aren't going to hold on to memories when they're 3 years old, they absolutely do, because I still remember my trip to Disneyland when I was only 3. And it was really unusual for my parents to take us on a trip like that, because at the time, we didn't have much money and they're immigrant parents. So they don't really prioritize fun in a certain way or things that you don't absolutely need to do, like school or extracurriculars. So it was never that encouraged, but I was so passionate about meeting Minnie Mouse in particular that they just
My
had to take
favorite.
me. Yes. So yeah, I do remember that whole trip to Disney. And it's actually kind of a sad story in my head because even though nothing went wrong, I think I had this fantasy when I was a 3-year-old that it would be actual magic, and not just a theme park. So I remember when I was on the Small World ride, I saw an exit sign, one of those red emergency exit signs. And that completely, I was devastated by it. I like kind of pitched a fit for the whole rest of the trip, but my family just didn't know why I was in such a bad mood because I don't think I could communicate it well, even though I have the memory of the feeling so strongly. And I weirdly think that kind of set a tone in my life where I wanted real magic so much that I actually hardened myself to it, because if it wasn't the real thing, I didn't really want it at all. But like growing up, I still loved entertainment and kind of escapism through entertainment and stories, books, movies, and all of it. I did start to approach it as a career because my first job out of college was in entertainment at Entertainment Weekly. So even though I loved entertainment and that's what took me to that job, I started to think of it so in terms of business, or like what happened behind the scenes, or what are these people really like? What are these actors really like? What's the drama behind getting this movie made? So in a way, I kind of took that disappointment of like movies or magic not being real and kind of made a career out of dissecting it. But I think like that kind of desire to feel wonder and magic is always there, but I didn't present that to the world because I kind of was so like disappointed by it not being reality but at a certain point, more recently, I actually decided to go full time as an author, but then I'm currently working at Netflix part-time. Something about having more free time during the week without a 9-to-5 job, and now living near-ish to Disneyland because I moved to LA from New York about a year ago. It really made me think, oh, like I can go kind of often. And I just had kind of this desire to sort of shake up my life or kind of get that childlike wonder back, especially because with writing as well, which used to be a big passion and escape for me, it still is a passion, but it is now my job. I wanted that feeling of being wowed by things again. So I started to go to Disneyland a bit more with a friend out here, and I really did start to feel the magic, but in an adult, realistic way. I know that a lot of this is a production. I know Disney is a corporation that I used to report on extensively, but I kind of use going to the parks as choosing to see the magic, even knowing better. And it's been like a very good exercise. And it's actually really opened up my creativity, and just seeing the storytelling and seeing the execution of trying to create magic for people in real life has given me kind of more inspiration to do that with my work, instead of just thinking about it in terms of, will this sell, or, will this next book advance my career? So that's kind of the long answer to what really brought me to Disney. And actually the cruise was kind of a culmination of this newfound interest, or this revival. I'm coming back to Disney since I was 3 years old.
I think that's true for all of us as adults. As we kind of get older, and you forget those moments of magic as a kid. And unfortunately for you kind of saw through it, at least right at the very beginning. And some of us, we kind of hold on to it, and then we move beyond it and we get involved with other things. But there's something about Disney when you come back to it. I remember the very first time we took our kids, and part of it was seeing it through our kids' eyes, and I will admit that. But part of it too was just, if you let yourself go in that environment. Chris on our show talks often about the Christmas fireworks show that they do. And there's this one moment where they're playing Silent Night and they shoot this star. They shoot this one final firework across the sky. It goes right over the castle. And it's just such a magical moment. And it's just like, to me, I guess, or to get us where I'm going to that is like, if you let yourself get immersed in it, there still is magic there. And so I totally see how, even as adults and as cynical as we can be, if you let yourself go in it a little bit and suspend your disbelief or that cynicism a little bit, it really reinvigorates it really reinvigorates you. So
absolutely. And as cynical as people can get about Disney, and there are obviously things to be critical of, it really does feel like it's the one place or one experience that they're trying to bring that to real life. Even if you can see through the production, it's kind of the only entity that's really trying to bring that to people on the scale that they do. I've found like a brand new appreciation for it. And actually, I've gotten a lot of pushback from people in my life that I didn't entirely expect. But, I lived in the New York kind of media landscape for a long time. And that is full of a lot of people who want to be seen as very sophisticated or not being, just not being like won over easily. I think they do look down on Disney adults or people who do flock to Disney quite a bit. Even one of my best friends who kind of was very resistant to me being having this as a new hobby said, "Oh my gosh, I told some people at a party I met that my best friend is now super into Disney in LA." And he was telling me how this girl was completely like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm so embarrassed for him." And I'm just like, you know what? In a way, I'm so glad to have moved on from that state of being, because at a certain age, I think part of being an adult is learning to not worry about people seeing you as childish. So it really has come to symbolize a lot more than just vacation and just fun, although it is that too.
It is a good reminder, that we as grownups need to stop feeling like we should be judging other people and what they're doing. And a reminder to those of us with children to start and putting it in their heads that their opinions of other people's actions are not necessary or relevant and that they don't need to be given. So my like little bitter mom moment of people getting mad at my kid for liking whatever he likes. Like, grown-ups, if you're not harming somebody, why do you care what we like? And the same for kids. If he's not harming anybody, why do we care what he likes? So just everybody should be embracing, if it makes somebody happy and it's not hurting somebody, it's a good thing. Exactly. It's a good reminder of that.
Exactly. And it's been a reminder that I always thought like I was so discerning, or I had such like sophisticated taste, and I wasn't a kind of conformist about things. But I think like people who are so against it are actually conforming to kind of ideas about what adulthood is. And
preach.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's been a journey. And actually going on this cruise has been kind of the peak of my sort of, for people in my life who are just like very surprised that I'm suddenly into Disney now, it kind of seems like the point of no return, which is fun. It's the final step, this cruise.
Well, let's talk about that. What made you go from Disneyland to getting on with Disney Cruise Line then?
So I hadn't been on a cruise in general in a very long time, but just the idea of that whole Disney magic brought into a more intimate space, and then just being surrounded by beautiful scenery just seemed really, really appealing. Yeah, just to go further into immersion. Also, being close to Disneyland now, I'm also close to San Diego. So I chose a cruise leaving out of San Diego that my friend Gary and I could drive to really easily, because as a former New Yorker, I actually don't even have a driver's license. So
you don't need one in New York,
though. So yes, I chose
not a driver's license.
I know, still in LA, I'd still drive everywhere or take Ubers or, bum rides from friends.
That is fantastic. Okay. So you go on, you pick this Disney cruise. How did you pick the cruise you picked?
I honestly I didn't want to invest too much in it because I was concerned about not really liking it or regretting it as soon as I got on the ship.
Sure.
So a 5-night cruise felt like a really perfect amount of time in that it was like a substantial amount of time, but not ridiculously long. Leaving out of San Diego and stopping in Cabo and Ensenada, I was really mostly interested in the ship itself and all the Disney touches. I actually found one that had a great price for 2 people. An inside cabin was only $1,300, including all of the port fees.
That's
and
fantastic.
I think it was because it was late January, and we also had a Southern California discount. So I feel like per day for each of us, it was literally like 150 or less, which I think is pretty amazing. Especially
and you get 3 meals a day, right? You get entertainment. Yeah, there's a lot included for that. I'm curious about how the sleeping arrangements worked because Disney, unlike other cruise lines, don't split the bed.
Yes, and that's a great point. With good friends, I'm completely comfortable sharing a bed. Actually, my best friend from New York, who's actually one of the people who's most skeptical about my love of Disney, is visiting me right now, and we're sharing my bed in my apartment. And actually, I convinced him to go to Disney for my birthday this past weekend. And he loved it. Yay. See? So I won him over. But yes.
One friend at a time. You just need to find these, get them there, right? And take them and brainwash them one at a time.
Exactly. So Gary is a very good friend of mine, and he is actually the one who kind of like shepherded me, or like kind of was my guru on this whole Disney journey. But it was completely fine. We did share a bed. It was a small room, but it's surprising how much space you can kind of find in there. Like our bags were completely out of the way. And also the way I travel with friends is I like time by myself during the day, or long stretches of time by myself, and then just meeting up whenever we feel like it, and then coming together at night for dinner. So I wasn't planning on spending much time in the room anyway.
Cruises are perfect for that, I think, as far as, being able to kind of find your own time and space, whether it's with another family member or just yourself, and then coming back. Dinner's like the greatest time, I think, where you get to reminisce on what you did. And then there's always something to do that evening as well. So I'm curious, after going to Disneyland, you said, what you were most excited about was the ship. Did the ship live up to those standards of what you kind of had experienced at Disneyland as far as the theming and all that stuff?
It really did. I did so much research going into it. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I listened to this podcast religiously. I went back and binged every episode.
How did you find our podcast?
I really, when I started to get interested in Disney cruises, I just figured there has to be a podcast about this. And you guys were the first ones that showed up. And I'm also a fan of DCL Dude. No, you guys were an incredible resource. So I wasn't surprised by that much once I got into the ship, aside from how it felt, because I knew what it would look like, but in person, it just looked more sparkling. I was just so dazzled by everything. And I find in my life, I've always been kind of like easily jaded by things. But I think, again, I went into this wanting to be wowed, but I genuinely was. Even things that I heard a lot of like common complaints about, I just was like, what? How could you possibly have any complaints about this experience? So I was really just blown away from the moment we got on.
I love that. Isn't it fun listening to this like recap, Steve? Like this first time cruiser.
Yeah.
The experience. It's so nice. It's so refreshing, honestly.
So what were some of your favorite spaces? You're on the Disney Wonder, the second oldest ship. It was the first ship that our family sailed on, and we've got a soft spot for the classic ships and the Wonder in general. But what were some of your favorite spaces there, whether it's the dining room lounges or just being up at the pool deck or someplace like that?
I loved the adult spaces, the bars, Cadillac Lounge, but really Crown and Fin became me and my friends' sort of headquarters. It had such a laid back vibe. Even in real life off of the ship, I'm always looking for the most beautiful or most, creatively conducive spaces to write in. And sometimes I spend more energy trying to find those spaces than actually writing. But in a way, a cruise ship was the perfect place to write because there are so many beautiful spaces. You feel relatively safe. If I just drop into a Starbucks, I feel like I can never leave my desk.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you probably shouldn't leave your laptop anywhere, even on a cruise ship, I still felt a baseline, increase in safety with the vibe of, everyone who was on the ship, the people who worked on it. So I really felt like, oh, I don't have to worry about being out in public because, writing is very secluded in a way and private or intimate in a way, but I still felt like I could be out in these spaces and still be having a very unique experience. So I loved writing in all these lounges. And also my favorite place and the place where I finished that novel was Cove Cafe. That was my favorite spot.
I love Cove
Steve,
Cafe.
I was going to say Steve loves and Chris loved the Cove Cafe. I forget that it exists, but.
Well, you know what was funny is like, I remember on one of the cruises we were on sitting up there and there was a couple of people from the entertainment staff and they were going over some new contract that they were signing. So they were actually like having business because they sell it as this like coffee shop, just like
Right.
your local coffee shop where things are happening. And like, that was the first time I was like sitting there like, this really is. It's like, just like the local coffee shop, stuff's going on here. You were up there writing, you were finishing your book. I love that.
Yeah, and I don't think I've really heard of anyone using a Disney cruise as a kind of makeshift writing retreat, but it really worked really well for that or for any creative endeavor you can do because there's so much creativity around you. The theming is just being near the theming is so inspiring. And also what I really gathered, what kind of the lesson I learned from this cruise was kind of going back to feeling uninspired before or feeling overly jaded. What really opened my eyes was just the work in making the magic happen, from how much hands-on labor goes into bringing this really amazing experience to people. I've always worked in the realm of ideas or words, always at a desk. And, since the start of the pandemic, I've always been able to work at home. And it's so easy to phone it in when that happens, no matter what people say about actually working at home is just as productive. But seeing people bring their A game day in, day out, no matter what they're experiencing, and the kind of the integrity they bring to the work was just so inspiring. And even being back from the cruise for a month, I'm like, oh, I'm sitting a little straighter in my chair as I write because like I should bring as much effort as I saw all these people do to create something very special. Yeah, I loved all those spaces, but even just being on the ship, even if I didn't write on the ship at all, I would have come away with a lot of creative energy and some inspiration. And also, I have to say that like you might think paying all that money to go on a cruise ship to write would feel odd, but I have to say writers pay so much money for retreats where they're basically paying for a desk and no Wi-Fi and nothing else. So being out there with the worst Wi-Fi ever in a beautiful space where all your basic needs are met is so relaxing and really opens you up to write. And also part of writing is having a lot of distractions. So, you can write a bit and then go somewhere and do something really fun and come back.
Okay, I have an important Cove question
Yes.
that I thought of, and you two will know. In my 20 cruises, I think I've been in the Cove Cafe 5-ish times. It's not that I dislike it. I don't go there. It doesn't, whatever. What music is playing at the Cove? Is it the rest of the ship music or is it a different track?
I'm trying to remember. I think for a lot of the time I had headphones on and was kind of like blasting music as I wrote. But I think it is probably very similar to the rest of the music on the ship. It has very coffee shop vibes. I doubt it had music with lyrics.
So Steve is shaking his head.
Yeah, I know. It's I don't like how Disney, like if you go over to Hawaii, you hear this Hawaiian music, but it's like Disney tunes to Hawaiian music. I don't think it's that. I think it's like kind of more like a light jazz and stuff like that. It's
not Disney music.
I don't know if it is or not, but it's definitely more like kind of, not classical is not the right word, but like Stephan saying, kind of more coffee shop type music.
Yeah, more adult contemporary versions of
yeah.
I feel like somebody said that in the adult area of the ships, like maybe the pool deck or even at the on the Wish in the adult area, that it's a different musical track. I swear I heard that somewhere. So I wonder if it's that same music or if it's so. Okay, people, report back, comment whenever we post the show. Go to Instagram or go to Facebook and comment and tell us what it is people are listening to or hearing in the Cove, because now I'm curious and I'm going to have to check it out in my next cruise.
So I could totally see where the Cove is the perfect place to write, because not that I'm a writer at all, but just when I have to study, I like going to coffee shops because I like to see what's going on, and then I'll concentrate a little bit and see what else. I mean, being up there, you can look at the ocean. There's like the classicness of just the coffee shop, that people coming in and going for that, the smells and everything else. Just a great place. But don't leave your computer there, because somebody like me was bound to come by and just say, and then she opened up the door, fell down the stairs and died. And you come back, oh my goodness, is that what happened to my main character?
You would not type something on somebody's word program or whatever.
Only yours, Christy. If I knew that you're a writer, I would do that.
You would erase it and you would rewrite something, and I would never leave anything like that entrusted in your care. But I don't think you would do that.
And then I would have to give you a byline too. Yes, written by Stephan and Steve Creasy.
He killed the story off before it got started. Okay, let's turn to a couple different things. So let's stay with kind of just like the overall feel of the ship. So, Disney's known for and you being an entertainment writer and whatnot for many years. What did you think of the shows?
I loved them. So at Entertainment Weekly, I actually was a Broadway reviewer for a few years. So I've seen a lot of Broadway, and I've always heard it being compared to Broadway on the ships. And it definitely is. Obviously, they're shorter shows than what you would find. No intermission, thank goodness. Because no, honestly, when I was reviewing theater, a show would get double the points just for being NMNI, 90 minutes, no intermission. So these were perfect. The first show up, though, there was some huge drama. So this was so strange. So it was Golden Mickey's. Everything was going great. Diana Dior was doing her red carpet interviews, getting exclusives with children dressed as princesses. And the first 20 minutes of the Golden Mickey's was going great. Tarzan came on, not to spoil anything. But when it was time for the Princess and the Frog numbers, Louis the Alligator came out with his trumpet, and it's a very big, bulky costume. While he was parading around with all the other dancers, a hatch in the stage floor opened up, and it was kind of clear that it wasn't supposed to open because it didn't open very smoothly, and he fell right into it. It was surreal because the curtains closed so quickly soon after that, but then a voice came on over the loudspeakers, and I think it was a stagehand, and he screamed, "What the F is going on?" And everyone heard it. This was the 6 o'clock showing. And
oh, no.
But it happened so quickly, and the curtains closed so immediately that I was like, wait, did I hallucinate hearing a curse word shouted over the speakers on a Disney cruise? But then I listened to other people kind of murmuring, and other people heard it, and other people saw different things of how Louis the Alligator fell through. Some people thought that maybe the actor shouted that, but it was very unclear. So there was a bit of scandal there. And then we were waiting around to see if the show would start up again. And 10 minutes later, we heard another voice over the speaker saying, "Code Bright Star, Code Bright Star, Code Bright Star, second deck under the stage." So clearly Louis the Alligator fell through an entire story onto the second deck because, the theater's on the third. And I heard, this part is hearsay. This part I didn't see with my own eyes. I heard at our first port, people saw an actor get wheeled off in a stretcher with bruises on his face. So I don't know if that part is true, but it did seem pretty serious. And of course, both the shows were canceled for the rest of the night.
Wow. I've never heard that happening before, but obviously, there's definitely a risk there with those, because you can see them if you sit up high enough, exactly those pits that you're talking about where the doors open. So I hope that the actor's okay.
Yes. So I do think that he is ultimately okay from what I heard. And to everyone's credit, no one was, focusing on the fact that the show was canceled or that, someone said a curse word very loudly. Everyone was just mostly concerned and obviously slightly disappointed that we didn't get to see the Golden Mickeys. But yeah, it gave us all something to talk about.
So the other big show is Frozen. Are you a Frozen fan? Were you able to see Frozen?
Yes, and it was incredible. I've seen Frozen on Broadway. Obviously, the story's different to be shorter and a different production, but I was just amazed by the effects and the quality of the singing. The show did shut down a few times temporarily because the boat was rocking, but it started up again, and I was relieved because, we didn't want anyone else to, take a wrong step. But Frozen was incredible.
I love that show so much.
Yes. And as far as movies go, I'm one of those Tangled is better people, but
Tangled is very good. And the movie Frozen is fine. But
yes,
the stage show on Disney Cruise Line, I adore. I just love it. I love what they did with the puppets. I really do love that show. And I am a very impatient and maybe slightly ADD person. And so a long show is not my jam. So the fact that they've they've shortened I'm here for all of that. So yeah, I love that show though. I will see it every time. Anytime I have an opportunity, I will see it.
So let's turn to dining real quick too. 3 different theme spaces as well. Probably one of my favorite dining places on there is Animator's Palette. I really love that one. Since you haven't been on the bigger ships yet, you haven't been able to see that. But what's that?
I didn't think you were going to say that restaurant.
I do. I love the restaurant, the theming of Animator's Palette, but the food I like is Triton's. But anyways, what did you think of Tiana's and Animator's Palette and Triton's?
Triton's was our first restaurant, and I have to admit, I was behaved very well, but I actually have to admit that I didn't remember the first dinner very well because I had been spending some time before dinner at the adult lounges. No, I do have some recollection, and it was lovely. And then the second and third nights were Animator's Palette. I loved it. I actually wasn't expecting the show with the drawings coming to life because for some reason I thought that would only be on longer cruises, but I think I was mixing that up with something else. But my friend Gary was moved to tears by it because it was just such a cool thing to, give us all that experience of seeing our, doodles up next to the actual characters. And the food was really, really good. I do like spicier foods or, I am more one of the adventurous eaters, but I thought Animator's Palette really served up a lot of different types of flavors. And of course, the serving team was just amazing. Felix and Letty, they were incredible. It was also cool, being there with a friend. We sat with a mother-daughter group and we became really friendly with them too. And the daughter was celebrating her 21st birthday. So, we bought her, a big bottle of champagne. So it was just a really great experience. I was definitely the most excited about Tiana's, and it definitely lived up to all the hype. I loved is it crawfish crooners or crawdad crooners?
Crawfish, I think.
They were incredible. And Tiana, of course. I was wearing a Tiana themed varsity jacket. So I showed it off to her and gave her a hug, but it was wonderful. I think I ended up eating pretty similar things every night because if there is a kind of tuna tartare, steak tartare, salmon tartare-esque item, I'm getting that. And I'm also getting the red meat. So it was very fun to indulge all of that. I also went to Palo Brunch. Steve.
Stephan's only been listening for 6 months and he already knows. He knows your Palo Brunch problem, Steve.
Yes,
these days.
I knew that was a must do. And I definitely took the advice that I saw on so many YouTubes and heard on podcasts to go for the entrees first and see if you have room for like the Mickey waffles and everything. We didn't. But the real standout, I would say, was the chicken parmesan. It was so good. I didn't think it would be all that special, but I had heard you have to order that. I was like, okay, how could chicken parmesan taste like anything other than chicken parmesan? It was just next level, and the service was just amazing.
And the risotto that comes with that chicken parmesan. I mean,
Oh my gosh, yes.
so good.
Yes, and taking Steve's advice, we ordered both the chocolate mousse cake and also the limoncello. And I have to say, I liked both of them equally. Our server told us to try the limoncello first because it's a much subtler flavor than the chocolate. And that was really good advice. So I actually like them both equally.
It's good to have somebody to go with so you can get both.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you can get both anyway if you want. You could be Anthony, Steve. Remember, he orders everything practically on the menu. And he eats it. Like that little, I don't know where he puts it all, but
that is so true. Anything else about the ship then, Stephan, that you wanted to talk about that we didn't touch on yet?
I went on the slide. What was it? The tip and swirl a bunch of times. I know it's the least exciting slide on any of the ships, but I still found it really fun. I did it over and over again. There was never a wait. And I did the Art of the Theme tour. Bingo was amazing. The only complaint entertainment wise I would have was that for some of the emceed events, it seems like, there were various levels of experience there. So when it came to trivia, I think when you're hosting something, including a podcast, the number one thing you can do is keep it moving, right? I've had to host a lot of panels. I'm like, don't focus on being interesting or funny, just like keep it moving and throw in some, fun along the way. But yeah, some of the trivia was a little bit tough to get through for that reason. But the bingo was amazing. That was always hosted really, really well, high energy. Gary won the final kind of jackpot but not on one of the big money nights, but we still got $300. So
nice.
It was really awesome.
B11, BB11.
Yes.
I love bingo too. I think, I think trivia is I think they put some of the new cast members on trivia because it doesn't get to be as funny. There have been in the past. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. He was from England. He was amazing on the Dream the first time we went on the Dream, and he really made it fun. But I think you get a valid point there sometimes. They can be a little dry.
Yes, we had a few hosts that would just comment anytime someone walked through the room. And it's just come on. Ooh, but another part of the ship that I spent a lot of time on, I used the gym every morning. It was wonderful. I took my time, then took a very long shower at the actual gym, spa showers, not in the Rainforest Lounge, but just the regular showers that they have there, which are so much better than cabin showers or stateroom showers. So I don't think I showered in the stateroom even once. I just always used that. So that was always like a good part of the routine. And also I would always dip in the adult hot tub beforehand. And people are just so friendly on a cruise. I think I'm much more likely to strike up conversations. And there were lots of really fun conversations in those hot tubs. Some adult conversations too, which was surprising, but
I think they could make a show, Hot Tub Confidential, someday. Like the taxi cab. What was the taxi cab? I can't remember. It was a confession. So yeah, we've got some really. What's funny is we've only been to the Rainforest Room once on the Fantasy, and I think that's probably one of my favorite conversations. It was my wife and I were talking to another couple, and we were just talking about so many different places that we traveled to and places that we wanted to go next, and giving tips and stuff like that. And so yeah. It's people are totally friendly, and after you have maybe an adult beverage or two up there by the adult pool, it makes it even easier to have those conversations.
Exactly.
So you guys stopped in Ensenada and Cabo. Had you been to Mexico before? Since you moved out from New York, was this your first time down to Mexico?
It was my first time to either of those towns. I had been to Cozumel before, actually on a cruise a long time ago. But Cabo was lovely. All I did was really just walk through, just see some of the sights, but really just went back on the ship. And I didn't get off on Ensenada. I hear a lot of people say that, people underestimate Ensenada, which could very easily be true. But I was just all about the ship and the Disney experience for this one.
Oh, no, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So were you lucky with the weather? Because it was like the weather was really crummy at the beginning of January. You said it was a little bit rocky, but was it a halfway decent weather for you on the sailing?
It was great, actually. And especially our port days, it was sunny. It got up to 70, but felt warmer because it was, there weren't any clouds. And definitely it was colder during the day. So, when I was getting out of the hot tub, I was absolutely running to the showers. I was very worried about seasickness. So I over prepared for that. I brought all sorts of different remedies because I have been seasick on Toy Story Mania. I mean, motion sick on Toy Story Mania. I've been motion sick from a kayak that I was paddling myself. So I was very worried. But what really worked for me was just boning in the mornings. And I was good all day. Gary, who doesn't normally get motion sick, did get motion sick coming back from Cabo because, they're really booking it to get you back. So I think if you're well prepared and kind of experiment with what will work for you ahead of time. I definitely used a few trips to Disney as my experiments of like, will this boning work on Star Tours? So, yes.
So I'm also curious with listening to, our podcasts and doing all the, watching a lot of the YouTube channels and everything like that before you went on this cruise, was there anything else that you wish you would have known? And this is for other first time cruisers. Is there anything else that you wish you would have known before you went on it? It seems like you're kind of proactive with thinking about the motion sickness and everything else, but was there anything else that you'd pass on?
I actually think in the future, I'll just be even more laid back about it or maybe I just got very lucky, but I was prepared for what could go wrong just because I just knew a lot of the specifics. But embarkation was super easy. I don't think next time I will bother coming exactly on time. Yeah, I also think that just watching a lot of content and listening to a lot of content, it just like really drilled in the importance of really getting to know the cast members or the crew members, because that really enriched the experience. And really, I mean, Disney's not really known for giving much for free, but like seriously, if you make a real personal connection, like, there's so much pixie dust to be had.
You know what? I kind of want to go back. Okay, so because this is something that was hard for me, I'll be completely honest, is being an adult, and we were older parents when we took our kids first on the Wonder and whatnot. Disney characters are never really huge. And I mean, I loved Peter Pan, the movie, and I grew up with Robin Hood and whatnot, that kind of era. So I appreciated those characters, but that was not like really the main reason why I wanted to go on a cruise. I wanted to go see things. We wanted to go to Alaska. We wanted to go to Norway and everything like that. But one of the things that has slowly grown on me is the interactions that you can have with the characters. So I was wondering how that's worked out for you. Was that something that you guys enjoyed while you were on board?
Absolutely. Before going to a Disney park for the first time in like maybe more than 30 years, a few months ago, I watched all the content and everyone's like, oh, you have to meet the characters. But I was like, I am not a character person. I'm just not going to be one. But then I did meet Mickey and Minnie, and it was just absolutely magical. And now I'm kind of addicted to characters. It really does force you to bring out that like childlike wonder and really the way to not be awkward, although it's fine being awkward with characters. I also do a little bit of self-promotion. I brought my books, multiple copies of my books, and I would ask for them to autograph my book and then get a photo of them holding my book with me.
That's awesome.
At first I thought they wouldn't like, but yeah, they totally let me do that. The only character that wouldn't hold the book was Jack Sparrow, but that might have just been his handler. But other than that, I got Belle, famous for loving books, to pretend to read my book.
I love that.
Push it to her chest. So no, those were definite bucket list items. And I was really glad to have Belle specifically do that because it's really hard to get her in the parks, but on the ship, she was very available.
That's one of the best parts about the ships, isn't it, Christy? Just the interactions that you can have with the characters that you just don't, especially down at Walt Disney World, it's even harder. I think Disneyland's a little bit better, but on the cruise line, you can really have those interactions, can't you?
Yeah, even as an adult. So it's great. And, watching my son have the interactions is still, it's so touching. Like Steve, you saw Blake my son interacting with Minnie. I think you guys were stalking us. Just kidding, but maybe not. On our Christmas cruise, and my son had taken a picture with his Polaroid and they were waiting for it to develop. And Minnie was just like so expressive in interacting with him, and her handler was fantastic as well. And it was just, it's like a memory I will have for years and years. It really was. It's so special. And the fact that they can do that for everybody, right? It's not like we weren't any more special than any other family. And yet they can just do this over and over and over again and make you feel like you're so special.
Yes. And Moana was just walking up and down the decks, looking for people to interact with. And Moana is really hard to find at the parks. So that was really special, just coming across her completely spontaneously. So I don't even think this counts as a tip, but I would say definitely it enhances the experience to invest in one real statement piece of merch to wear on the cruise. Because everyone's trotting out all their ears and everything in their t-shirts. And I think I maybe packed only Disney's clothing, but I actually wore these fuzzy slippers that are shaped like Sully from Monsters, Inc. And they actually look exactly like him, and they're really great. They're from a company called Happy Feet, and they were featured on Shark Tank. But they're just
You're going to share this picture, right?
Yes.
You when we do our show. I'm going to need that picture.
Yes. No, but something like that always gets a lot of, acknowledgement from the cast members. So it was really fun. And it really worked because that is a fuzzy character. So he's perfect for fuzzy slippers. Oh, and this is very much not even a tip, but for Pirate Night, especially for the gentleman, folding up the bandana to make it more of a band across your forehead, like a sushi chef or a ninja, looks so much cooler than wrapping it around your head as a bandana. It really does. Like I did that, and like seriously, the dads were like, "Oh wow, how'd you do that?" And I was like, you just kind of fold it a bunch of times and wrap it around it." So that I do think I started a trend.
Karate Kid look is back, Steve.
I can never get that thing to stay, and then it sticks up, and it's just like, yeah.
Well, now you have to do the Karate Kid look.
I'm going to next time. Matter of fact, I might get mine out tonight and try it on, just so I'm prepared for the summer.
So let's stick with tips for a minute. Do you have any other fake or real tips? Oh, we have a few more minutes.
Oh, I would just say, again, in terms of being nice to the cast members, I did see a little bit of bad behavior in terms of people screaming at cast members for enforcing the adults only rules a bit. And also, there was a lot of drama on debarkation, which was strange because I found it very easy. But I think there were people that were very upset that they weren't allowed to just jump right off, but had to get into the back of the line. But they were just there was a lot of shouting there, which I thought was completely unfounded. And also, I did find on the last day, I did see some warnings about this, especially on YouTube, that the servers do, really go for the tips but I didn't find that to be a negative. I actually, because they kind of did enforce, not in a pushy way, but they just made it very clear that this was very important to them. And at that point, I was only too happy to, supplement the tips and make sure that they got it in their hands. I did get some warnings that was a very big negative of the ship or of the experience, but I actually just found it, I was just very happy to do it. And it made a lot of sense that they would push for the tips at the end.
Steve, don't feel like, besides the rating on the survey, that I have ever had an experience like that. Have you, that you can think of?
No, we really haven't.
YouTube, and now Stephan is,
No, we really haven't seen that. I've heard that before though, but
right.
I feel like we always make a good connection with our serving team, and I don't think it's even a question in their mind that we're not going to tip on my guests. So I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I shouldn't say push, but they just made sure that we understood how it worked. That
Maybe because you were newer.
Yes, they were just like, make sure to put that slip in the envelope, and then you can add whatever you want. But they just made it very clear on the last night, and I think it turned off our table mates. But to me, it made total sense that they would do that. So
well, that's how they get paid. It's like, yeah, everybody, and some people need to be reminded. But yeah, this is how they make a living. So maybe it was just to make sure people understood that. Right. The tips are how they make a living, and who knows,
Right.
But okay.
Oh, last quick thing.
Yeah.
The laundry room I thought was amazing. I heard very mixed things about it, or it's hard to figure out, but maybe it's because I've often used public laundry spaces in New York, living in apartments, but I loved it. It really prevented me from having to pack too much stuff. And I found it the prices were very good. So I'd say don't be afraid of the laundry. And, if you want to do it, plan to pack a little less and do laundry. I would say go for it.
Prices are definitely reasonable there, and wait till you get on the Wish I need your help, Stephan, because I want to start a write-in campaign. They need to put a speakeasy into the laundry room on the Wish,
because it's actually brilliant.
It is that nice. It is that nice. In all honesty, if you have a little speakeasy in the back there, you probably never see me anyplace else. I'd be back there doing laundry all the time. Onwake would be.
Wasn't your kid doing your laundry for you guys? He doesn't need to be at a speakeasy. Well, he did my laundry for me too.
He did. Well, Stephan, as we kind of finish up here, welcome to the club. I mean, I give I think that's what we talked about at the very beginning, as far as kind of people being skeptical about Disney, but all of us find a joy out of it. And I love the fact that whether you're a Mets fan or a Giants fan or a Disney fan or whatever your fan is.
Talking about sports?
Because I think that I think that everybody's got, something that they're proud of.
Yeah. And feeling an identification with something and not just. Yeah.
So welcome to the club, and welcome to the Castaway Club as well. Now that you're going to be going, well, I shouldn't spoil it. I hope that you're going on a second cruise. What's next for you?
Yes. So I went all out. I'm going from my first cruise I booked a Panama Canal 14-day.
That's fantastic.
It's kind of the perk of, not having kids and not having a set schedule for work. So I'm I might as well take advantage of it.
Oh, I loved my Disney Panama Canal cruise. So it is so great. Make sure you get your passport stamped they'll have the immigration officer on for a couple of hours during Panama Canal Day. So go and get it stamped, and you can mail a postcard that day as well.
Oh, awesome. Mm-hmm. I will definitely take that into account. I'm so excited.
We did a trip report for me that is more than 100 episodes ago. So if you go and Google it, dclpodcast.com, which is kind of broken right now, but we'll figure that out one day. But Google that and Christy's Panama Canal report. You should be able to get my trip report and listen to the episode if you want.
Awesome.
Well, Stephan, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience. It's been a pleasure to meet you today. And thank you for being a listener of our podcast, and once again, welcome to the club. I'm always excited to have another fellow cruiser, and hopefully someday we'll be able to cruise together somewhere on one of these ships.
Oh, that'd be amazing. And thank you guys. You guys are such a joy to listen to. So yes.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great night.
Yeah, same to you. And when you get back from that Panama Canal cruise, or if you decide to add on something before then, please reach out.
Yes.
Please reach out. We have back on. All right. Cheers, Stephan. Bye.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.